Hey, how's everyone doing today? Here to talk about hot button issues, being sensitive, and what we should or should not put on the page. Teresa, how you feeling today?
Feeling good, feeling good. How are you?
I'm ready to talk about some sensitive stuff, get raw and relatable. So I'm excited to see what people will think and say. So at our last episode, we were talking about, you told this like really raw and really serious story that stuck with me for the last couple weeks. And you talked about how the feedback, you wrote this character. Let me see if I get this right. You wrote this character and you wanted her to arc out of kind of this like dark night of the soul and into this better character, almost Breaking Bad, but Breaking Good in a way. And you got like a lot of negative feedback from your beta readers about like how basically she was unlikable or not relatable. And so instead of sticking with the story you wanted to tell, you really censored yourself and then fundamentally changed your character and to some extent your story. Is that right?
You got it right. Yeah. So this was for River City Widows. River City Widows is set in Sacramento, and it is about a young widow who is being overshadowed by an entity. She, her stepdaughter,
like non-physical entity, right? Like spirit.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Her stepdaughter shows up out of the blue. She doesn't have a very good relationship with her stepdaughter, and she's a widow. So her stepdaughter's father died. So the relationship is already kind of a little bit just there's a lot of things to deal with, a lot of emotions to deal with that. So stepdaughter shows up and is not behaving the best. She's dealing with her own stuff. She's not being open about it. She's not being the most respectful. I mean, she's like 22. Of course, she's not the most respectful. And on top of that, Tasia's being kind of manipulated by a not so nice entity. So what I really wanted was I wanted her internal monologue about her stepdaughter to be kind of nasty, because the idea was that she would eventually arc out of that and then rebuild the relationship with her stepdaughter. She would never out loud say some of the thoughts that she had. Never out loud. That was never going to happen. But it would all be kind of internal, and also playing with this idea of motherhood and the times where we're not at our best. Our internal monologue sometimes as moms, it's not good. You know, there's stuff.
Okay, in the chat, I want to know if that's true. Tell us in the chat if you're here. If you're a mom or a dad, are there times that you think things that should never be said out loud, or is that just Teresa and I?
Oh,
is it saying something about? I mean, it could be. So you think, so what you're saying is that it's ultimately relatable.
yes.
Like everybody has these thoughts, and that by writing them, you're making the character more relatable.
More relatable.
And then I had this panic attack feeling, Teresa. I was like, I could have been one of the beta readers that was worried it wasn't likable. I could have been reading one of these craft books. I probably was. There's a lot of craft books like Save the Cat that tells you need to make sure your protagonist is likable and relatable. And if they're not likable, or if people can't really, so if the internal dialogue was too curt or too brass, I might have said something being concerned.
Absolutely. And there's value in that, but I think the key is to enter into a dialogue with your beta readers. And I think sometimes there is a risk, especially when you're an early writer and you're just starting to play around with the idea of beta readers and getting critiques and everything else. There's a huge risk of somebody giving you feedback and you go, "Oh, okay, my bad. I'll fix that." And not being like, "Well, wait, but actually I did want to do that. Did I not do it right? Maybe I didn't do it right." And then talking about it so that way the beta reader can be like, "Oh, I didn't realize that's what you were going for." Because if that's the case, then you're not selling the right thing. And that needs to be fixed. So there's value in getting that feedback. You don't want to shut that feedback down, but you want to have a conversation about why you wanted to do that. And instead, again, I was an early writer. I went, "Oh, my bad." and I censored it because to me, it's the whole save the cat thing. How likable do you want your protagonist to be? And there's always this fear of not having a likable character and your reader putting down the book and being like, this book sucks.
Mm-hmm.
Even when you're going for that.
Thank you. Thank you, Stu. Good to see you. So let's go there. What you're going for. What happens when you get feedback and you're going for a hot button issue, or originally you think you want to write about something that's really sensitive, but then you really don't know, you're not sure. I'll give you an example, the one we talked about from my writing that I have a lot of emotion about. I'm really up in my feelings about. So I was raised in a very conservative area. I was raised in a highly, highly religious area. And I'm really close to a bunch of people who have alternative gender and sexual preferences that are not accepted from where I'm from. And many of them, because they were so interested in their religion and believed so much in their religion, hated themselves and were suicidal towards themselves and would where I'm from, the pray the gay way is a thing. And people still believe that now. And suicide is very high because of that. And I have a nephew who went through that. And so I worked with him and he became a major character in my sci-fi book, where he actually sought out to make himself straight because that's what's socially acceptable. And I wanted to tackle that straight on and talk about what that's like for them. And it cost me publication. They said I could either be published or I had to change the subplot because it was too sensitive, and I still to this day have no idea if it was right for me to stick by that or if I should have just changed it.
I think it goes back to why were you writing the book? Mm-hmm. And there are consequences to pushing the envelope and allowing conversations to happen. It's a really challenging time, I think, right now, because speaking out can cost you readers. And for those of us who are fighting for every single sale, every single review, we're absolutely terrified that we will do or say something that either gets us canceled or the opposites. We are accused of being too woke or something like that. And that costs us readers too. Or the worst thing happens, you actually get attacked on social media to the point where you're being hardcore bullied.
Yeah.
And that's scary too. I mean, Queens in Wonderland came out. I actually think this may have been your idea. Morgan, you suggested
I'm always let's see what happens. And then I'm like, sorry, guys.
You suggested that I send a copy to every person in Congress.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, ugh. Because I was worried. There are authors who are a little bit shy and a little bit concerned about getting national attention for an LGBTQ Alice in Wonderland anthology. Now, I doubt that would happen. It's an anthology. Anthologies don't typically make national news, but you never know what might just kind of hit and might just, for your 15 seconds of fame, get national attention. And do you want to deal with that?
And my pushback was, isn't that exactly what you want? Because it'll put you on the map. But then you have to you push that hot button issue. And if you're listening to this, let's be honest, push that hot button issue, push it right. You'll get attention. But then you have to know yourself well enough to know, can you handle the emotional part of the attention? Even if it works out financially for you and you're getting more, people are talking about you, so they're buying your book and they're either hating on it or loving on it, but they're buying your book because it's got these sensitive issues or these hot button issues.
Right.
How does that affect your home life, your marriage, your mental stability, your real job? Because all of us have real jobs.
Your friendships. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. How out do I want to be at my day job? And the answer is not that much.
Yeah.
Although
I think a
people
lot
do
of us
know.
are like, no, we want to have a balanced, privacy is valuable. And Stu made this really good point. He said another thing to consider is that the publisher cancels the contract even after the book is for sale.
Absolutely. And we see that happen. Or it gets picked up, it's in the middle of, it's so close to being published, and then they go ahead and cancel it. And there's publishers that are doing that for good reasons. There absolutely are. There's been some bad players recently who have been doing review bombing and that type of thing, which you never do. Don't ever.
In case someone doesn't know what that is, what is a review bomb?
Review bombing means that you're going to go on authors on Goodreads or Amazon and intentionally downgrade a book because you don't like that person. So you haven't read the book. You just give it 0 stars and say terrible book, or because of this person's behavior, I do not recommend this book, that type of thing. So there's different reasons to do it. Some people will just do it just because they don't like that person. They're trying to cancel them. And some people are doing it to their competitors so that their competitors' reviews go down. They'll create fake accounts and one person can create 25, 30 accounts and 1-star review a book. That's 25 or 30 1-star reviews. That can hurt. That can hurt you hardcore.
Oh my goodness. And so when you're thinking about censoring yourself, you have all this information about everything that can go wrong. Like going back to the publisher, canceling his contract, that happened to him, right? Mm-hmm. It's not like just something we're talking about abstractly. Like he's like, this happened to me.
Yeah.
So of course, we as authors are going to start then being, I don't know, is afraid the right word to write certain things, or
maybe,
right?
Maybe, and maybe that's that censorship part. Now, one thing Stu is saying that happened to me. Can you give us a little bit more information as to what you're talking about? And we'll keep chatting, but we'll keep monitoring the chat too. But yeah, I think people are intentionally being more careful about what they write about out of fear. And we shouldn't be. It should be arts. Now, I'll flip the script. If you are trying to get an agent and get in with the big 5 publishers, maybe you do have to be careful because they won't pick up something that's controversial.
But how would you even know? Because the controversy curve is like changing so fast and trendy that I'm almost like want to push back and say, almost who cares? Like, mm-hmm. Write what you like. Part of me is like sick of this. Who gets to like tell people who's worthy and what stories are not worthy to tell, and who's controversial and who's avant-garde? I mean, one person reads the book and they're like, oh, they're avant-garde, they're cutting edge, they're bringing attention to the problem, right? Orange is the New Black gets away with all kinds of things for this. And I'm a fan. I'll out myself. I'm a fan of Orange is the New Black. The L Word got away with all kinds of things that if you were to put it in, back in the day, if you were to put it in straight connotation, would not have flown at all. People would have been way more outraged. So I think it's really...
Schitt's Creek. That was such a fantastic show about love and acceptance. And that would not have flown 15, 20 years ago. But right. Beautiful, beautiful and funny sitcom about family and love.
Yeah. So this is really interesting what he put. He used to write textbooks and books for elementary schools. All were successful, and then wrote about my life as an exhibitionist.
Oh.
Sales were good, and then my guess is somebody complains.
That may be.
That's
Interesting.
fascinating. I think now, oh my gosh. So I think, is that, just out of curiosity, were you using a pen name? Because I was under the understanding that you want to use a pen name for different genres for that reason. So that it's different, like if you're writing romance, you write under one name because those readers would follow you under that name. And then if you're writing action Western, you're under a different name. If you're writing textbooks, you're under a different name because it's a different group of people who would be following you. Is that what you understand, Teresa?
That is my understanding as well. I don't believe in that. Frankly, I don't have the energy to run different social media accounts. I can barely run my own social media accounts under my own name.
I just cheat and run it under Semi-Sages.
That too. Yeah, if there was a reason why No Bad Books and Semi-Sages kind of merged, and you'll notice how Semi-Sages and No Bad Books post the exact same thing. There's only so much time in the world.
We're tired and we have work and jobs. Oh, but look at Stu's pushback. It's really, really good. He says, like, he decided that a pen name would imply that he was ashamed. Yeah. Yes. Because, again, why can't we just authentically tell our stories? And if you don't like them, don't buy them, but why cancel?
Right.
Like, why do we need to cancel each other?
Yeah, well, and this goes back to, and I do not want to take this conversation into a political direction, but this kind of goes back to the divide and the fact that we really struggle to have debates in our country and to properly accept your views are different than mine, and that is okay. And I think a large part of it has to do with how emotions are so high, and a large part of it has to do with how we say stuff. For example, I entered into a debate with somebody about banned books on Facebook. Don't judge. I couldn't help myself. I really could not help myself. And I worked really hard to keep it very high level. I addressed how, I asked, what about horror books? Should we be banning horror books for children?
Ooh, I want to know in the chat, should horror books for children be banned?
Right. And this person said, yes, there are subjects in horror books that are not appropriate for 7-year-olds. And I said, okay, I kind of agree with that. But I was trying to enter into a debate, and I said, okay, well, fairy tales are essentially horror stories.
Yes, they are.
They are dark. I mean, Hansel and Gretel, it's about starvation, for God's sakes. Fairy tales are very, very dark, and we tell them to our children as warnings.
Well, think about Ring Around the Rosies.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Or Jack and Jill.
Exactly. But here's what happened. This person started using phrases like, well, you have your beliefs. And I'm like, well, no, I mean, yes, I do, but okay, now I'm feeling like you're attacking me. You're not debating with me anymore. You're saying you have your beliefs and you raise your children how you want to. And I'm like, well, okay, I just wanted to chat about it with you. Sorry. And that's the situation that I think we find ourselves in so much, where the emotions get very high and people start using the word you do this, you feel this way. And in this person's defense, they did get attacked by other people. I was very good and didn't attack, but other people were attacking this person, and I think they just got very defensive and and kind of attacked everybody who was chiming in on it.
Well, that I want to pull your you word on you and be controversial here. So that leads me to a question that I really wanted to talk about, was how much should you even care about what other people think?
Ooh, good.
And if we care, who should we care about? Should we only care about people who kind of think like us? Should we care about those people who have different opinions? And if so, to what end? So they think that something in our book that we wrote is offensive. Should we care about that? Or should we just, to Stu's point, express who we are? And if they like it, great. And if they don't, don't. I'm on the fence about that. I can see both sides.
I can see both sides on that one too. That one's tricky. I think you have to talk about it with an editor or your beta readers. I think you have to know what you are getting into. Know you may get backlash because our books are a part of our souls. Our characters, no matter how hard we try to separate them from ourselves, they
Yeah.
are little pieces of ourselves. They are
Yeah.
our way of viewing the world is through our filter, through our personal experience. So when people don't like our writing as much as we go, that's okay. You don't have to. It stings just a little bit. And a lot of those stings can add up to hurting a lot. It's that whole death by a thousand cuts. You can take 900 cuts and you're fine, but that thousandth one, that's the one that does you in and be like, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore. This fun hobby that I had, it sucks. I don't want to do it anymore.
I like what Stu says about this. If you care about money, you need to care about readers. If you're
Yes.
doing your right, if you're just doing it as a hobby or just doing it for healing, then you need to care about you. So I think you have to be really clear. I like that. I think we get into trouble when we try to do both.
Possibly. And that may be where pen names come in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think it's not an easy answer. I think at different times of our life, we feel differently. I feel like when I'm more secure in my home life and my marriage is good and my kids are good and my horses are good, I don't care what people think.
Isn't that amazing?
I mean, I do because I love people. I genuinely, everyone who knows me knows I'm a teacher and I care way too much about people. Like that's definitely one of my fatal flaws. But I can handle it. Like when people have a different opinion, I'm like, oh, I'm so grateful for that different opinion. And thank you for sharing your light. And I may take their opinion or not take their opinion. But then if I'm weak or I feel like I'm not good enough and they issue a criticism that I'm already self-conscious about, that is when it hurts because I feel like I already know that's a problem, but I don't know how to fix it. And when that happens, when somebody like comes in with a comment that hits on something that I feel like, oh, I know, and I would give anything if I knew how to fix that, it's harder for me to respond with like grace and love and appreciation, which is what I should feel. Because thank you for spending your time reading that. Thank you for being honest with me. Thank you for helping me grow as a person,
Mm-hmm.
But it takes me longer to get there.
Yeah. And even that, sometimes things just get under your skin. And it's part of being human. I think sometimes there's lessons that we have to learn over and over and over again. Or we think there are lessons we have to learn over and over and over again. So we beat ourselves up for things that only happened once, but we're going to bring it up 600 million times.
Right? Yeah. And like Stu was saying in the comments, he's like, thankfully I have a supportive husband. Amen. Because there's so much about writing that is emotionally vulnerable, like you're saying, Teresa. Like you put yourself out there, and whether it's your friend or your puppy or your kitty or whatever it is, having that person to grapple with these issues. But I like what you're saying, Teresa, about, okay, if I'm going to write about a hot button issue, which race is a hot button issue, rape is a hot button issue, child abuse is a hot button issue, there are emotions tied to these. And as much as we know as good writers, we're supposed to be plucking at people's emotions. If we do it well, they will have responses.
They're supposed to. That's what we are trying to do as authors. We are trying to tell stories and try to explain our emotions, because emotions are completely illogical. They're colors and shapes and feelings and textures. And then we try to put them into words and explain them. And we do that through stories. That's what a story is. A story is trying to explain an emotion.
So if we veer away from sensitive issues and hot button issues, then we're getting away from tension. We're getting away from the complexity of what is humanity. And ultimately, we're not serving the reason we decided to write it, right? Which was to embark upon an experience. Even in humor, even in comedy, they're toying with this. But having said all that, you need to know yourself, and I hope and no one out there ever has to go through like what Stu and other people have had to go through, because it's not right that you tell your story and then you get canceled for being your authentic self. Like, I'm so sorry for that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. That's terrible. And I really appreciate you sharing that with us too.
Mm.
I know sometimes those stories aren't easy to share. So I think, I hope it kind of lightens the burden and lightens the emotions around it a little bit to know, other people are feeling for you too.
And like that it was like selling, like people loved it. They were resonating with it,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it was working, got the emotions going. So hopefully this gave you some, thank you for spending time with us. Hopefully it gave, I don't know, a new perspective or just reinforced what you already knew, which is that you're great writers and you're here to shake things up and it's okay. And we're going to feel feelings.
It is. And if you're watching the replay of this, please go ahead and comment below. We do read all these. We do respond as well. We'll keep an eye on this one. So please feel free to comment below. Or if you want to really chat with us, what can they do, Morgan?
Oh, please come to our Discord. It's at semi-stages at the page, or go to semi-stages@thepages.com if you want to learn more about how to get a hold of us or contact with us. Anything else, Teresa?
I think that's pretty much it. We'll let everyone get back to their evenings because we know what you got to go do.
And our friend Stu gives away his book PDF version, so you should go on our Discord and share it. So if people are interested more in his story, that'd be amazing.
Yeah.
Bye,
Absolutely.
everyone.
Yeah. Bye. Take care.